What is going on, everyone? My name is Under the Radar and welcome back to the Draft League Viabilities. Now I want to thank you guys so much for your support on these broken mons in the format. It is so much fun doing them and I love the fact that you guys are enjoying them so much. So if you do enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like and leave a comment on your opinion of the Pokemon that we'll be covering in today's video. Pokemon that we're going to be covering in today's video is a mon that has actually been edited. Let's go with edited, so that way you can use it in draft format and it's not broken since it has been banned to Ubers, and that is in fact my boy Greninja. Now, I've seen everything done to this guy to make it legal. I've seen to where you can only use XY movesets. I've seen to where you can't use Protean. Now, in my opinion, both are extremely good ways of making it viable. One makes it a little bit better. In my opinion, the one making it Torrent Greninja only, that makes it a little bit better in my opinion, because it does still have the insane move pool of Gunk Shot, Low Kick. It already has Shadow Sneak, but then it can run Ice Punch if you think they're going to be bringing Spit-F Latias, things of that nature, but that's a really bad example of Dark Pulse. That was a very long-winded sentence, and now I'm out of breath. But you know what I'm saying. This thing has an insanely wide move pool of Grass Knot, Dark Pulse, Extrasensory, Scald, U-Turn, Grass Knot. It gets access to things like Low Kick, it gets access to Gunk Shot, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, Shadow Sneak. It's access to its own form of Protect called Mat Block. It has so many cool moves that this thing is just diverse as hell. It's not limited to just being a special or a physical attacker. So it is extremely good as a mixed offensive or solely offensive mon. It's also extremely fast at base 122 speed. So it outspeeds the common things that I always try to aim for whenever I'm having a draft. I always aim to have at least two things that outspeed the Lottie Twins. At least. Or things that are base 115, because that outspeeds base 60 Scarfers. So realistically, this thing can be extremely hard hitting, because if your opponent doesn't have anything faster than base 100, you can run Modest, you can run Adamant, you can hit very hard. The thing is though, its offensive stats are not that impressive. So I personally would rather have Protean with a limited move pool, because it can hit harder with like Stab Grass Knot, Stab Ice Beam, because it already has Stab, Scald, and Dark Pulse, so that doesn't really matter as much. And being able to change the typing of it can really come in handy sometimes and really cause mind games. Whenever you look at it in a perspective to where this thing could run Protean, then it's not as diverse in my opinion as it is if you could just run Torrent. Because if you run Protean, you're more likely going to be running it offensive quite often. You're not going to be running the the lead set with things like Taunt and Spikes and Toxic Spikes. You're more than likely going to run mixed offensive, because it can blow through your opponent's walls. Like, Fairy types don't want to come in on it because it has Gunk Shot. Steel types don't want to come in on it, especially if they're stupid heavy Steel types, because it could have things like Low Kick. Or if it's a Steel type that has a 4 times weakness, it could have the Hidden Power and still hit very hard with that Hidden Power. It has access to Grass Knot, so bulky waters aren't a good switch in if they're heavy bulky waters. There's just a lot of things that this thing can have to blow holes in teams, especially walls. However, it's not a wall breaker. There are two completely different things. There are things that can punch holes, and there are things that can break. Breaking walls is whenever everything, this is my opinion on a wall breaker, nothing can switch in without doing 70% damage. That's about where I like to do it, except for like specified things, resistant berries, or if it's like a return, it's a steel type, things of that nature. But like generally, nothing can switch into it without taking 70% health. This thing can't do that. It can do about 60 sometimes. It can do 40. It can do anything from like 60 to 40, but it doesn't do it all the time. And that's where I think this thing relies a lot on its item and its ability. If it's Protean, it's a little bit easier to punch holes, but then it's walled easier. If it's XY, then you don't get stabs, then you have to rely on Life Orb. You're then going to be taking like Spikes, Stealth Rocks, Life Orb, Recoil, and you're still not going to be able to OHKO things. That is the problem. So this thing has to wait for everything to be in range, has to have the stars and shit line up correctly, and then it can come in and clean up. And because it is so frail, and the things that you wanted to OHKO, like fairies, it's weak to Moonblast. If you wanted to OHKO something like a grass type with Ice Beam, and they have like say a resistant berry, it's going to lose to a Giga Drain. It's so frail that you have to make sure that you have ways of weakening the opponent's team first before this thing can work. So let's talk about something that nobody ever talks about, nobody ever thinks about, because it's just so damn broken. And I completely agree with you, 110%. However, it must be talked about. What if we allowed Protean Greninja with the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire Wi-Fi move tutor moves? I don't know why I said Wi-Fi, because they're not explicit to Wi-Fi, but you get what I'm saying. I don't know if you guys can hear my dogs up there, but they're being really annoying. Anyway, let's say that this happens. Would this thing be so stupid broken that it would be impossible to work around? I don't know. Maybe. Kinda. Here's the thing. Greninja is the main Pokemon I wanted to enforce my opinion on with this. In draft format, everything is easier to deal with because you can prep for it. Everything. That includes Lando I, Slyro in the PPL, realized this with Weavile. Everybody prepared so hard for it, so he had a hard time finding a good time to use it. So, it wasn't successful. Things that are Ubers like Lando I, they weren't broken in the GBA. They were very, very good, but they weren't broken. So, with something like Greninja, to where it was so close in getting banned, people were back and forth on it, it was kind of like the Hoopa Unbound suspect. Would it be broken even though you could prepare for it? Let's just take a team and look at it. So, I actually want to take a look at Shoddy's PPL Season 3 team. So, let's say that Shoddy is the one that is facing this Greninja. Greninja has to run very, very key moves to take on Shoddy's team. It will have to have Hidden Power Fire because of Klefki, and if you don't know Shoddy's team, I will put it up on the screen because it is a little, well, I'll put it up there on the screen because it's a little bit important. It would need to have Hidden Power Fire for Klefki. It would need to have Ice Beam to hit Crobat and Thundurus because general hard-hitting things, along with Stab because of Protean. And then it would also need to have Grass Knot for Seismitoad. So that leaves one unspoken move for it, which would more than likely go to Scald. So here's the thing. Is that impossible to work around? I don't know. That's where I'm kind of sort of torn. Let's take a look at Liam's team. His team will be up on the screen too. It would have to run Dark Pulse for Mew or Night Slash or something to hit Mew very hard. It would more than likely run Extra Sensory for Mega Venusaur and Scald for Mamoswine, and then of course it would have to probably run something like U-Turn so it can get out on Vaporeon because Vaporeon can just drink up Scalds. But then it doesn't have Stab, it doesn't have a way of hitting Spiritomb, it doesn't have a way of hitting Mawile super hard. So is it impossible to build around? I'm not sure. That's something I'm kind of interested in trying out. Let's actually take a look at one more team. I want to take a look at Shroomraver's team. And if you don't know Shroomraver's team, it'll be right up there. So, again, it would probably have to run Dark Pulse for the bulky Psychic type and Mesprit. It would have to run Gunk Shot for Sylveon because that's a very easy switch in without Gunk Shot. Mega Scizor could be a very easy switch in depending on its spread, but then it doesn't want to get Scald burnt, so Hidden Power Fire might not be completely necessary. And then Crocodile, Scald as well, Jellicent, Scald, Blaziken, Scald, Weezing, Extra Sensory, or if he wants to run like a Spadef Weezing, and then Tornadus. But then he has no way of hitting Noctowl. He has no way of hitting Electabuzz. So there are essentially ways of dealing with it. So if you can kind of sort of look at it that way and play along with the what are the best moves that this thing can bring against me, it might not be broken. However, I'm going to state personally, I wouldn't want to try to face it because it would be very hard to do. So with that mindset, it might be a little too broken. I'm not sure. That's where I want you guys to come in. Let me know what you guys think if Protean, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire move tutor moves were allowed. How broken do you think it would be? Because realistically, we've seen Greninja with just XY, just Protean, and they haven't been top tier threats because people were prepared for it. So maybe we could incorporate it, and maybe it wouldn't be broken. Maybe it would just be top tier. One thing that I would like to put in with Greninja is the fact that another way to check it is by knowing that it can have a lot of coverage, it can have a lot of super effective coverage, therefore resistive berries work very well against Greninja. I've realized this from back whenever I was in a league that allowed it with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire move tutor moves and Protean. Berries just worked so well against it. That was back when I hated berries, so I had to find other ways, but berries work really well because it's very obvious how it's going to try to wall break through a team. So with that being said, there are ways of maybe checking it, but there's no way to counter it, and that's where my problem lies. However, there's no way to counter Manaphy. There is no way to counter Emboar. There are very few ways to counter some mons in the format, so is adding one more that bad? I'm not sure. If I were to draft, I'm going to base everything off of now if I want just XY or just Protean. If I were to draft this, what I would want to go along with it is I want hazards, I want spikes, toxic spikes, and stealth rock. So I want something that can take grass moves and electric moves very well. Therefore, I want Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn specifically because it can leech seed, get off chip damage, get off spikes, get off thunderwave, can do a whole bunch of things to wear a team down to put it in range of Greninja just going dead, dead, dead. That's very important. Another thing that I would want with this thing is a slow U-turner or a slow volt switch. So if I could get something like a Rotom Heat, even a Rotom Wash, even though it's doubling up on the water typings, normally Greninja runs Scald, Hydro Pump. If Rotom is running those, it's not to do damage, it's to get chip damage, or it runs Volt Switch, Will-O-Wisp, Pain Split, Thunder Wave, things of that nature, so it might not be bad to have the two water types together. Last but not least, I want another very, very, very fast Mon that can also spam moves like Greninja would be able to spam Dark Pulse and Scald. So, I would want something like Noivern, something in the similar speed tier, to where if it gets paralyzed, you have another way of dealing with it. If you have something that can Thunderwave something else, these both can just run havoc. So that's kind of the way I would want to build around it. However, I'm not sure the best way to do it because I personally don't enjoy using Greninja all that much. So if you guys have any other suggestions as to how you would build around Greninja, make sure to leave a comment down there along with how you think the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and Protean Greninja would be. But there you have it. That is my overall view on Greninja. All three forms, honestly. The first two are not broken whatsoever. I think they're very easy ways to incorporate into the format, and I love it. The third one, I'm not sure. It would have to do some thinking and some testing first, but I think it's definitely something to think about. All of these things are honestly something to think about. It's just if people would be open to thinking about it. But once again, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please make sure to leave a like. Also, to go down to the comment section, leave a comment for me. I love reading the comments on this series. It makes me so happy. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.